What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Global Gaming Network channel, where we get the opportunity to go over everything in the world of esports across the entire sphere of Earth. We got plenty to dive into on today's show. Valorant's about to be kicking off. ESL Pro League Season 21 just ended. Now we're in the Blast Premier Open Series. League of Legends getting underway post First Stand. And then in Call of Duty world, we're traveling down to Allen, Texas for the second major of the year. All of that to get into and more. This is Today in Esports. What's going on, folks? Like I was saying in the intro, welcome back to Today in Esports. My name is Andy. Joined with me, as always, is Chris. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. I know we have a lot to cover, but let's go ahead and start with the Major 2 of Call of Duty. It's being hosted by Optic in Texas, but they're undergoing some roster changes, I've heard. So can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Thanks so much. Hey, look, Optic are in a real bad place. Since Major 1, they have really struggled to even put a single map on the board. I mean, some of these stats are absolutely insane. I mean, 2-7 in series account. That includes a 3-1 win versus the Los Angeles Gorilla Mates and a 3-1 win versus the Las Vegas Falcons in Minor 2. They're 4-7 in Hardpoint, 1-8 in Search, 1-8 in Control. They got top 8 in Minor 1, 10 seed entering Major 2, and they're hosting Major 2. So yeah, it's not looking good. So clearly the Green Wall need to make a change, switching back to their major championship win back in the Modern Warfare 3 year, and they brought back in Pred, but Kenny still struggled. So now they dropped Kenny, the first time in his entire career, keep in mind you, for Caesar Skies Bueno. YouTube bio be damned. Skies is finally on the roster, and he's been statistically doing a lot better than Kenny on a statistically worse team. So I guess plug and play, it should do better for Optic Texas, but there's still a lot to keep in mind going in towards this event on the duality in between both Skies and Dashy, how he's going to be able to implement a lot more strategy for this team and to enable the SMGs like Shotzi, just like he was saying in the interview with Scump, like he was doing with Paco back when he was playing with him on New York Subliners.
Well, now that we know all about the host team and the changes that they have made, we'll have to see how they do going into the Major number 2 there. But what about the rest of the teams? Who should we look out for?
Yeah, I mean, obvious to say, we got to keep in mind that Los Angeles Thieves are the number 1 seed going in toward this entire tournament. They are undefeated as far as series counts are concerned. They won the Minor 2 tournament, yes, in Map 7 versus Vancouver Surge. They also came up short in a Map 7 Round 11 versus the Atlanta FaZe in Madrid for Major 1. They are undefeated through qualifiers, only dropping 2 maps, 21-2. That's a 91.3% win rate in their maps. It was a 1-3 Hacienda Control versus Minnesota Rocker, and a 1-6 Skyline Search and Destroy versus the Vegas Falcons. But you also got to keep in mind, Atlanta FaZe is still very much so in the mix. EWC champion, Minor 1, Major 1 champs, Atlanta FaZe. So yeah, it's a heavy favorite. They're on opposite sides of the bracket from the one of 2 teams that have been giving them issues as of late in both LA Thieves and the Vancouver Surge. And they wouldn't see each other until winners finals. Atlanta is the number 2 seed for their 1 loss in week 1 versus Vancouver, where they lost 1-3. But without them, Vancouver Surge, there wouldn't be a top 3 to be talking about a heavy hitter. They have no doubt been impressive since post-Major 1 changes in bringing Neptune into the fray, right? Neptune has leveled up the Surge's respawn considerably and added a new form of aggression for their already accurate and methodical teamwork. They are the 1 team to beat Atlanta FaZe, like I said, not just once, but twice in the span of the major qualifiers. They lost 2 qualifier matches, one to the Thieves, 0-3, and Ultra in a Map 5, losing both the Searches and the Search versus Minnesota in their last qualifier is not a good look for Vancouver, given they are going up against a very strong S&D team in their first round of the Ravens.
Thank you for the insight for those 3 teams there, but what are some of the teams that you're personally watching?
Yeah, there's always one. I'm personally being on the lookout for the Squirrel team up north from the Toronto Ultra. On that note, it is my personal underdog team going in towards this entire event. They have a real good opportunity not only to beat their first round opponent of Cloud9 New York, but also their second round opponent, which I project to actually be the Vancouver Surge. Let me explain a little bit more. Toronto Ultra are 5-2 in this split, including a top 4 in Minor 2 after losing to the Thieves in a 3-0 fashion, with the S&D going to round 11. It's just that. Surge has been getting much better for Toronto Ultra, which has been one of their biggest woes as of late, and the Thieves were definitely put on the back burner for it. The Surge were definitely on the back burner about it. They got Neslo'd in that last qualifier match. Neslo is when you win in all the objective game modes in a best-of-5 or a best-of-7 series. In a best-of-5, it'd be maps 2, 3, and 5, the Search and Destroys, and the Control. And that's exactly what Toronto did to the Vancouver Surge in their last qualifier match, and something that they really need to be wary about when that round 2 match does come around, or anybody else facing the Toronto Ultra. They are absolutely looking better. Joe Deceives is at an all-time high. Insight is playing alongside Beans very, very well. I think that the team should definitely take the Squirrel team very seriously. And as for the schedule is concerned, like I was saying, Toronto Ultra will be playing up against Cloud9 New York in that opening matchup. That is going down at the day of recording this exact series. Atlanta FaZe first round matchup versus Minnesota Rocker today, as well as Carolina Royal Ravens and Vancouver Surge. And then LA Thieves going up against Boston Breach as they just beat Miami Heretics to find themselves in the 8th seed. But did they really come out on top? I'm not too sure. We're going to be going throughout the entirety of the schedule through the entirety of the weekend until we get towards those last 3 matches. Winners finals, lower finals, and grand finals on Championship Sunday. Should be an absolute doozy as you already see some teams in the lower bracket, backs against the walls, feet feeling the flames, more analogies to say the least.
Well, we have the news on Optic. We have some insight onto some of the teams. You've given us the schedule. What are your expectations going into Major 2?
I think Optic are going to make a run. Wholeheartedly speaking, I mean, you got the home crowd buff behind them. The last time that at least the core 3 of Optic Texas played in that venue, they won MW3 champs. Pred's been looking good. Skies is a walking 1.0 across the entirety of all 3 game modes. I think that they make a good run. Skies is going to have the crowd behind them for the first time in a long time. It's probably going to be a FaZe Thieves grand finals. I think Surge might upset a couple people, but yeah, I'm mostly all eyes on the green wall. Like most people, I think they make a very deep run.
Great. Well, I'm excited to see it as it is. It's going on this weekend, so make sure you tune in on Monday to get more of the rundown of the games and the champion as well. So let's go ahead and shift gears and take a look at League of Legends.
The first international tournament has concluded. Let's go on and review the winner and how they got there.
Taking a look at the standings for the groups, HLE finished first, TTBC Flying Oysters finished second, KC finished third, TES finished fourth, and getting eliminated in fifth was Team Liquid. Moving on to the semifinals, Flying Oyster faced off against KC, with the winner being KC with a series score of 3-2. HLE then faced off against TES, with HLE winning 3-0. In the grand finals, we did have KC versus HLE, with KC coming out on top in the first game, but it would be HLE who would win the next 3 to take the series and the tournament 3-1. With that, HLE would be crowned the first stand champion and will now give Korea an extra slot in MSI that moves directly into the bracket play.
Now that first stand has finished, we will move into Split 2. What kind of changes will we see from Split 1 to Split 2, Chris?
All right, let's take a recap of Split 1 first before we move into the changes for Split 2. For both LTA North and South, they both played a double elimination best-of-3 bracket with the first 4 teams qualifying for the cross-conference championship. For LTA, that was 100 Thieves, C9, FlyQuest, and Team Liquid, and for the South, it was IE, Leviathan, Loud, and Pain Gaming. The cross-conference championship was a single elimination tournament between those best 4 teams between the North and the South, with the winner qualifying for first stand, which again was Team Liquid. Now let's take a look at Split 2 and the differences that we're going to see. In Split number 2, it will begin on April 4th, and both LTA North and South will have 2 stages, the first being a group stage, followed by a playoff stage. In the group stage, both teams will participate in a double round robin stage where all matches are best of 1. Do remember that this was made before the change to the Fearless Draft was implemented for all splits. In the playoff stage, we will see the top 6 teams facing off against each other in a double elimination bracket, with all matches being a best of 3 and the grand finals being a best of 5. The LTA North winner will qualify for MSI and directly qualify into the bracket stage, as well as we will have the first and second place teams for LTA North qualifying for the Esports World Cup. For the LTA South, the winner will qualify for MSI, but will need to participate in the play-in bracket versus teams in the LPL, LEC, and LCP to try to qualify for the bracket stage.
As we all know, League of Legends happens across the globe, so as we keep in mind for all of that, what are some of the changes happening in the LEC?
All right, and again, the LEC is going to have a difference in Split 2 from 1, so let's review 1 first here. LEC's winner split was a single round robin where each team played 9 matches, one against each other, and all games were a best of 1. The top 8 teams then moved to a double elimination bracket where all games were a best of 3, and the grand finals were a best of 5. KC would be crowned the LEC's winners split champions and qualified for the first stand tournament where they would come in second. Now let's take a look at split 2 and the differences that we'll see. LEC's winner split will start on March 29th. All teams will play in a single round robin with all matches being the best of 3 this time. Now going into the playoff stage, the top 4 teams will be seeded into the upper bracket where the 5th and 6th place team will be seeded into the lower brackets for the playoff. The playoffs again will be a double elimination tournament where all matches now will be a best of 5. The winner will be qualified for the bracket stage at MSI in the Esports World Championship, and then the second team will be qualified for MSI but will have to go into the play-in stage, but they will also be qualified for the Esports World Championship as well. In other league news, T1 CEO Joe has decided to bring back Gumayusi to start for the LCK 25 season. Now remember that although LCK has started already, the split 1 was the LCK Cup, and then it is moving into split 2 and 3, which will be the LCK 2025 season. Now, Gumayusi was benched after the second season of the LCK Cup and only played a total of 5 games in 2 different series of the best of 3 matches. Then Smash was subbed in from Coach Koma, who ended up playing the remaining 15 games, which was the remainder of that season, as well as the playoff games to try to get the first stand. This decision has been met by some mixed reviews, as again the CEO has overturned the decision from the coaches, and we'll have to see how this goes into the next 25 season for LCK for T1, as now they are moving into a 6-man roster with both Gumayusi and Smash competing for that starting position. And again, it will be Gumayusi who will be starting the LCK Split 25 that will begin in 1 week from today. And that's all we have for League of Legends. Tune in on Monday for additional information we have going into split number 2. But let's go ahead and take a switch over to VCT and take a look at what's happening in Valorant. Andy?
Yeah, look, I mean, after Masters Bangkok, like, we're all highly anticipating what's going to be in store for us coming to Masters Toronto. And without further ado, sometime soon, we're going to be able to see what's going on with VCT Stage 1 games for VCT China have started to obtain positions for Masters Toronto, happening on June 27th in 2025, of course. With VCT America starting March 21st, Pacific will be starting on the 23rd, and EMEA will be starting on the 26th of this very month. Teams that you want to be watching out for in these upcoming matches, G2, obviously. They just made finals back in Masters Bangkok and dominated VCT kickoffs. Will they continue to be dominant? I don't know, but we can only stay tuned to find out.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the key matches for VCT Americas. First, starting with on March 21st, C9 versus NRG, Crew versus Loud. Then on March 22nd, we'll have G2 versus Furia and Leviathans versus MIBR. On March 23rd, we'll have 2G versus EG, and then Sentinels versus the 100 Thieves.
First matches for EMEA kick off on March 26th. We have Vitality versus GX, BBL versus KC. We also then on the 27th move to Heretics taking on APK, Foot Esports versus MKOI, and then March 28th rounding out the week we have Fnatic versus Na'Vi, and then Team Liquid will be taking on Gentle Mates. And then as always, we have to travel to the wild, wild west of the timeline to take a look at the weekly news roundup.
Let's go ahead and take a look at our first news segment of the day. The Esports World Cup has officially announced its partnered teams. Let's go ahead and take a look at the intro video for the Esports World Cup.
Just like that, new blood on the streets of EWC there on Esports Boulevard. Should be a very fun time there in Riyadh come that time, as we got some newcomers and we got some returning faces. And there's going to be a lot of different esports as well. I strongly urge you all to go to EWC_EN on X to be able to go take a look at all of the games that we will be competing in when that time comes for the Esports World Cup. It's in a few months' time, but to see a lot of these very tailored names, I mean, you got teams like Fanatics up there, Zeta Division, T1, Na'Vi, FaZe, 100 Thieves. Louder also up there too. Like, you got teams from across the globe representing almost every single region for every single esport as well. It should be a fantastic time.
Taking a look at our next news segment, we're going to switch over to Halo. We're going to take a look at the leaderboard leading into the qualifiers here this weekend. So taking a look at these teams, we have some notable names across each region. Of course, we have Shopify, Rebellion, Optic leading the charge over in NA. We do have, of course, a lot of the other teams moving across the regions. So go ahead and make sure you let us know who you're most excited for to qualify, or if your team has already qualified, what your expectations are for them going into the next major.
And that's all we got this week as far as the weekly news roundup. And honestly, let's just go ahead and throw it out there. We could put a whole lot more on this segment if you just let us know at one of us, if not all of us, on some of these new segments across the timeline. To get involved in the conversation, down low in the comments is one of the best places to do so across one of, if not all, shows here on the Global Gaming Network channel. But without all of that, further ado, let's get right on back to the desk.
And that's all we have for our news segment today. Let us know in the comments section if there was any news that we missed or anything you possibly want us to cover for Monday. The Blast for Counter-Strike has blasted off, so let's go ahead and take a look at it.
Yep, very much so correct, Chris. Blast Open season has just now started. 16 total teams split into 2 separate groups where you have to battle to make it to top 6 in order to make it to the next stage. Lot to unpack, so let's jump straight on into it, starting off with Group A. Group A has 3 of the 4 best teams in it, with Spirit, Mouse, and Vitality, but it has some teams like Astralis, FaZe, and Falcons that could present some upsets. Astralis make a return to Blast as they opted out of ESL Season 21 tournament, but have been hard to read if they are improving or stagnated. We'll have to see how they perform. We will see some great matches out of this group and maybe a rematch from the ESL Season 21 finals. Group B, on the other hand, have the Mongols, the highest Valve global ranked team in the group. It will also have G2, which recently lost Nico to the Falcons, which has had a massive impact on that team. Will they be able to perform, and will Snacks be able to lead? We'll also be able to see Na'Vi in this group, who also have been struggling with their roster, and thoughts of possible roster changes if they do not perform well during this Blast season. Very simplistically put, if you win your group, you automatically get a first round bye in the playoff bracket. That's a single elimination bracket, by the way, so skipping that first round kind of ups your chances of winning, I suppose, but it also ups your prize pooling as well. If you win the entire tournament, you get $150,000 and 3 frequent flyer tokens, which is a very interesting +1 that Blast has entered in towards their seasons. Let me explain a little bit more. These frequent flyer tokens are something that you get to acquire and accrue over time during the Blast season's tournaments. If you win, you get 3 top 6 for this tournament, you still get 1, but over the entirety of the year, the more that you have, the higher chances you get at a lot bigger of a prize pool at the end of the season's end. If you want to learn more, we went ahead and put a hyperlink into our description. You're going to want to follow that just to learn a little bit more about it.
Thank you, Andy, for that rundown of the Blast Open, but let's get to the exciting part, the matches. They have already started, so let's take a look at Group A. And to kick it off, we do have Mouse versus Falcons as our first game. The first map was on Train and was chosen by Falcons. The first half saw Mouse on the CT side and ended with the Falcons being up 7-5. Magic opened up the second half with a 4-piece using the dual elites to secure the pistol round victory for the Falcons. Despite the Falcons having a strong start with the pistol round and a follow-up eco round, Mouse would push strongly through the second half, winning the 8 rounds needed. Mouse would win map number 1, 13-11. Timpaf would be the best player of the map, getting 18 kills and only 13 deaths. Now moving on to map number 2, which we played on Ancient. Mouse's pick, Falcons has played on it 9 times with a 56% win rate, and Mouse has played on it 10 times with a 70% win rate, so we're looking at a pretty even match going into map number 2 here. Ice would be on Sphinx, with him being the new addition at Mouse at the end of January to see if his chemistry molds with the Mouse current roster and on one of their favorite maps. At the end of the first half, Mouse would demonstrate their capabilities of playing T-side, going up 9 rounds to 3. Spinks shows he was able to play with his team on the T side. He didn't have the best performance, but he was able to go 8 kills and only 9 deaths, helping influence the first half. Now, going into the second half, Falcons started clawing back, winning 5 rounds in a row before Mouse was able to get 1. Mouse was able to claw their way back and get the 4 rounds they needed in the second half. Therefore, Mouse was able to win the map 13-10. Spinks was able to end map number 2 with 20 kills, 14 deaths, and showed he was growing well with the team and melding into Mouse's style well. Mouse would win the series 2-0, and the player of the series would be Dimpat, getting a whopping 33 kills, only 23 deaths, and having a 52% headshot ratio.
Then moving on to FaZe versus Virtus Pro. This was the last series of the evening, so we were highly anticipated to be able to see what FaZe versus Virtus Pro were going to be able to develop. Map 1 took place on Anubis, which was picked by VP. The first half saw FaZe starting on the terrorist side, where they would go up 8 rounds to 4 in a very close back and forth, but a lead nonetheless. Alish would get a 1v3 clutch in round 9 with a perfect double headshot spray leading into a third headshot. It was a nasty transfer. Icy would also have a quick 1v2 clutch situation on the counter-terrorist side where he runs into Brokey in a smoke for a quick double spray down in a round 12. It was a whole rave party, you had to be there. In the second half, VP would come back and tie the series to force it into OT. FaZe would start on the CT side for OT and take over the game, where they would win the 4 rounds straight in OT for the victory of map 1. Best player of map 1 would be Frozen on FaZe, where he got 25 kills with only 18 deaths and averaged 92 damage per round. This was a great lead for FaZe to have for themselves, so they got to choose map 2. They decided to go to Ancient. In the first half, we would see a very close match with FaZe starting on the terrorist side. Both teams battled to get a lead, but it would end up with a tie in rounds at 6 apiece. Icy would again have another 1v2 clutch after bomb was planted to take over the site and defuse the bomb in round 6. Going into the second half and the side swap, we would again see both teams being equal on the map. VP would get the game all the way to 11-8, but FaZe would fight back. This half would end in a tie again, which would push the map straight into overtime. Flames would get an ace against FaZe in a very close match. They almost lost it in the final moments, where Rain almost sprayed them both down in round 19. In overtime, FaZe would win the first round to make it feel like they would win the 4 rounds in overtime, but VP would come back and win the 4 rounds, instead to take the victory in map 2. Best player from map 2 would be Flames, sporting 30 kills, 20 deaths, 8 assists with an average of 99 damage per round. FaZe needed to win the first 2 maps. Let me explain more. They only had a 40% win rate on Dust 2 to VP's 71% win rate. They were forced to play on Dust 2, as the other map that could have been played was Inferno, which they banned, since they only have a 20% win rate there in Blast matches. That was on display in this series. In the first half of map 3, VP absolutely desecrated FaZe. FaZe could not find a way to defend against the different strategies and would drop 12 rounds in a row. Flit got a clutch 1v3 in round 7 with a catwalk push with an AK and an insane peek to dodge getting headshot. In the second round, VP would win the pistol round to win the series 13-0. Not since 2019 has FaZe lost straight 13-0 in a match. VP wins the series 2-1. This match showed that FaZe needs to learn some different strats on some of their worst maps, like Dust 2 and probably Inferno, as their win rates are terrible on those 2 maps, and VP used that against them.
Now let's take a look at one of the matches we'll be covering on Monday for Group B. Eternal Fire versus Team Liquid. Both of these teams are very close to each other in skill level, with both of the teams making it into the playoffs for the ESL Season 21.
We also got the Mongols going up against M80. The Mongols have been a rising team in Counter-Strike and show that they are a contender as one of the top teams in CS2.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the remaining games of Group A. Here we do see Spirit did beat Huns Esports to move into upper bracket semifinals. Of course, we did cover Mouse versus Falcons, then beating them 2-0 to move up as well, moving the Falcons to that lower bracket. FaZe Clan, of course, did lose out to Virtus Pro in that 2-1, moving Virtus Pro to that upper bracket semifinals, and then FaZe Clan to the lower bracket as well. And then in the last match of the upper bracket quarterfinals, we did see Team Vitality beating Australis 2-0, moving them up as well.
Real tough shake for both the Huns Esports and Astralis, might I add, that they have to now face both FaZe Clan and Team Falcons respectfully going in towards the lower bracket semifinal where they hope to make top 6. But did we miss anything? Because we just went over so much that is just happening this upcoming weekend and maybe in a few weeks' times as far as esports. But let's get involved in the conversation. At one of us on the many different platforms for social media, as well as in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, all the goodies as well, so that way we can get out there and the information is shared amongst the world. As always, we look forward towards Monday's episode and the conclusion of this weekend's competition. On behalf of all involved for today in esports, y'all stay safe and have a wonderful weekend.